Try a couple things. Give me a second. Let's actually just head out because I think the internet is no good. All right. All right, let's head out of here because I think the internet is no good, so we'll do the introduction on the ground floor. But for those of you who can hear me, happy Sunday. It's good to see everybody. I see Dave, I see Keith. What's up? I see FredX. Welcome, FredX. Good to see you as always. Let's just head downstairs and then we'll get started. All right, let's see how cold it is. It's actually not too bad. Okay, everybody, welcome to Walks on Wall Street. It's good to hear everybody. It's good to see everybody. It was a pretty cold day here in New York. But real quick, we're on the corner of East 31st Street and Madison Avenue. Gorgeous brand new development building we have right here. Guys, the weather, before we get right into the main events, we have some pretty big breaking news on Wall Street, but the weather in New York over the past couple days has been crazy. It's been like 55 degrees, then it was 60 degrees. Then it was actually a little bit warmer than that for a period of time, but today was cold. Today was freezing. It was like 32 degrees all day. And there was actually the half marathon. I'm not sure if anybody from the chat ran that. I think there was a couple people, maybe John, that ran the marathon. So if you did, congratulations on that. Hopefully the race went well. But we have some breaking news as it relates to Credit Suisse. So as we've been talking about all last week, we have these bank debacles and bank blowups. You know, Credit Suisse was actually bought out by UBS. So you have this massive consolidation happening. And I think you're going to continue to see that. I don't think this is the end of the consolidation. I think you're going to see a lot of American banks consolidate as well. But it was a $3.2 billion takeover. Now, real quick, check out the Empire State Building from here. Really beautiful. I see Wendy England, Justin S., Gary Carpenter, FredX. Welcome everybody to freezing cold New York. Clara W says, "Oh my God, UBS acquired Credit Suisse." Yeah, and you know, the Swiss National Bank, I think, also pledged about, I think it was about $100 billion loan in order to support the takeover. And it's kind of interesting because this plays into what we were talking about last week as it relates to the cockroach theory. Now, does anybody remember that? I sort of explained it a couple times. And, you know, usually if there's problems with one specific bank, it's never just one, right? You usually have a contagion effect of multiple other banks. And I kind of use the kind of funny, I should say, example of, you know, if you're looking for an apartment and you see a cockroach come out from under the refrigerator, it's probably not just one. There's probably 20 more under there. So we saw this start with Silvergate, that went under. Then the massive Silicon Valley Bank failure. Then we had a big New York-based bank. And now we have Credit Suisse being bought out by UBS. So I think we're probably going to get a lot more news next week, and I think we could possibly see something very, very similar here in the United States. Hey, Sabrina Fair, good to see you. Welcome. Mimi. Palmetti says, hey, Tom, UBS buys Credit Suisse for $3.2 billion. Yeah, it's big news. So I wanted to walk down Madison Avenue tonight to Madison Square Park. Now, the reason why I think it's appropriate to do that is because this is actually where Credit Suisse is. It's located right at the end of the block here. Now, here's what I think is going to happen. I think you're going to see a monsoon of layoffs happen. Now, usually the acquiring company retains the vast majority, or I should say the lion's share, of the employees. So it's unfortunate. I think a lot of people are going to get rolled at Credit Suisse, unfortunately. But we'll see. Jeff W277, good to see you. OMW says, please send your regards to Monica. Welcome. Good to see you, Monica. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching the show. Let me just cross the street here for a moment, everybody. Yeah, I'm seeing Wendy England says, I was very tired. You said you were very tired today. I kind of was too. It was cold. I hate the cold, man. I really, really hate the cold. But the good news is it's probably going to warm up throughout the week, so that's good. But this is going to be a very busy week on Wall Street. We are going to hear from the FOMC. We're going to hear from Fed Chair Jerome Powell as they make a decision whether or not to raise interest rates. Now, there's about a 75% chance, according to the futures market, that the Federal Reserve will raise interest rates by 25 basis points. I think that would be the appropriate way to go. You know, as I've explained before, and many of the viewers in the chat were actually in agreement, I think if the Fed pauses, or even if they cut by 25 basis points, I think the market's going to be really, really freaked out about that. I think you may actually be able to see limit down, maybe, if they cut. So I think they're going to be steadfast. I think the Fed is going to be steadfast. I think Fed Chair Jerome Powell is going to stick to his talk track about raising rates. And assuming they raise by 25 basis points, we'll have a 5 handle on the Fed funds rate. So the Fed funds target rate will officially be 4 3/4 to 5%. So that's significant. And I think that's going to give a big boost to the mortgage rates as well on that 30-year fixed. Hey, Jeff W277 says, I just saw my finishing time 2 hours and 32 minutes. That's actually really good for a half marathon, man. That's pretty good. Congratulations on that. You know, I saw a little bit of it. I saw like the tail end of the marathon. And I had no idea it was even supposed to be going on, but I saw like the tail end of it. The very, very tail end. Going up 7th Avenue right there. So they closed off 57th Street. There was a lot of foot traffic, a lot of the barricades, and pretty much all of Columbus Circle was closed off too. Hold on, let me put down the phone. I'm not sure if you guys could tell, but the wind is pretty brutal tonight. Wind is probably blowing like 15, 20 miles an hour. I gotta put up my hood. I got a hat on, but it's still really cold. So give me 1 second. But if you look straight ahead, everybody, this is actually Credit Suisse. All right, I think that'll be a little bit better. So as everybody knows, the big news, yeah, Wendy England says the cold just strains you. But I mean, look, if we look on the bright side of things, right, the good news is that it's almost the end of March, thank God, and then it's April. So I think next week is actually the official start of spring, I believe. So hopefully, you know, as the week works itself out, it'll get back up there in the temperatures. But today's cold. You know, if you look on the bus stop right here, everybody, it actually says the temperature 36 degrees. It's probably a little bit colder than that because the wind is really, really getting cranked here. Justin S. Tuesday is the first day of spring. Love that. Now, we've been talking about earnings season, right? And obviously earnings season is very, very busy on the stream, because almost every single day we outline at least one specific company to highlight. But before we get into that, here we have it. So we are now outside of Credit Suisse, and the breaking news on Wall Street today is that UBS buys Credit Suisse for $3.2 billion. Now here's how it's going to work. This is what's being reported by the Wall Street Journal. So if you are a Credit Suisse shareholder, you will receive one UBS share for every 22 Credit Suisse shares that you held. I think as of market close on Friday, maybe you guys could double check me on this, I think Credit Suisse was like a $2 stock. It may have closed like $2.03 or something like that. But hopefully you didn't hold any Credit Suisse stock. But if you did, you're going to receive one UBS share for every 22 Credit Suisse shares that you held. Now, in addition to that, you know, I'll actually take you guys around the block so you could see the building here. So in addition to that, the Swiss National Bank is also pledging a loan up to $100 billion to support this particular takeover as well. But the bad news is, you know, there's probably going to be a massive amount of layoffs, a massive amount of job loss, which you never really want to see. You never really want to see that. But, you know, the combined bank is going to have about 5 trillion assets under management once this takeover is officially closed. Here you have the Credit Suisse sign here. We'll just do a quick walk around. But, you know, if I had to guess, I think there's going to be a tidal wave of job cuts at Credit Suisse, and probably, you know, the vast majority of UBS employees should remain intact. It's sort of the same thing that we saw in 2008, right? Huge consolidation between banks. It's almost very reminiscent, and there's an old saying, not only on Wall Street, but just generally everywhere, that, you know, history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it definitely does rhyme. And last week, the same week, but in 2008, instead of, you know, UBS taking over Credit Suisse, it was JP Morgan buying Bear Stearns, right? So JP Morgan, on the 16th of March 2008, JP Morgan buys Bear Stearns for $2 a share, and this comes just 2 days after the CEO of Bear Stearns comes on the TV and says that everything is fine and liquidity is there and the bank will be solvent. You know, fast forward 2 days, JP Morgan is buying Bear Stearns. So it's kind of crazy. You know, the month of March is definitely not a very lucky month for the major banks here. So in 2008, it was JP Morgan buying Bear Stearns. In 2023, it's UBS taking over Credit Suisse. Kind of interesting, kind of incredible how that tends to work itself out. But let's continue to push further downtown, everybody. Hey, Jacob is here. Just looked at Fred data just now. Zooming out, looks like rates are still historically low. Maybe last time, well, I don't know about that. Historically low, yes, right? But if you look back to 2008, in 2008, this is what really kicked off this ZIRP, if you will, right? And ZIRP is an acronym for zero interest rate policy. And in my view, it is my view that quantitative easing and ZIRP is really what has caused all of this massive failout and failures in these banks. It was going to happen anyway, but essentially we've just kicked the can down the road for 14 years, right? And it makes me think of, these individuals like Peter Schiff and some of the other, very well-known outspoken perma bears out there. So technically, their thesis is always correct, right? Their thesis is always correct that more banks are going to fail. We're going to have a really, really bad downturn in the economy. The stock market is going to go down significantly. But they're only right when the Fed pivots and when the Fed goes from QE to QT. But if you look at the performance of some of those perma bears over the last 14 years, it's really, really horrible and really, really bad. So, I think this is just back to normal, right? But as you go back to normal, you're going to break things. I mean, if you take the Fed funds rate from near zero and increase it 500 basis points in a little less than 2 years, I mean, you're bound to blow something up. And it's very possible we could have a 5 handle on the Fed funds rate next week, right? That is the FOMC meeting. And it looks like Fed Chair Jerome Powell is going to raise by 25 basis points. Johnson's Fed funds overnight rate 4.58%, 10-year 3.5%. What are your thoughts? Why would banks lend long term? Well, it's of my opinion that this big fallout, especially with Silicon Valley Bank and now Credit Suisse going down, I think lending standards are going to get even tighter. And I think that's going to be a big, big negative for small businesses and the average retail consumer. That is what I think. And the only people who will be able to have access to money, I'm talking about loans, is probably the big players, right? People that have substantial firepower behind them, substantial collateral. Because in an environment like this, I mean, if I was JP Morgan Chase, if I was Citi, there's no way I'm going to write a mortgage or I'm going to do a small business loan or anything risky like that after all this went down. So I think one of the byproducts from this is going to be lending standards are actually going to get even tougher, if you could believe that. Hey, the Mighty Bull is here. Good to see you. Sean Connolly says, what are your thoughts on annuities? I don't really have any thoughts, just to be very blunt. I don't personally have annuities. The only thing I would say, Sean, is that if you're looking into that, usually a lot of those tailored products come about with a lot of fees. So the only thing I could tell you is that if you're looking into any of those products and you're sitting down with your financial advisor or whatever it is, the only question you should really be asking is, what are the fees? What is the fee structure? Because some of these fees in these annuities and a lot of these mutual fund products are really egregious, and it makes the vast majority of those products that Wall Street tries to hawk not worth it. So if it were me, that's what I would do, but I personally don't have any of those. All right, everybody, check this out. We are now at Madison Square Park. Look at this view of the Empire State Building. Really gorgeous here. Hey, Dan Zhang says, Tom, do you think that UBS has officially become the monopoly of banking in Switzerland because Credit Suisse was their biggest competitor? Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're going to see that here in the United States too. I think you're going to see that globally. I think you're going to see every major country having, maybe like a handful of major banks that we bank with. Now, do I think that's good? I don't. Right? And we sort of talked about that over the weekend, why I don't think that's good. I think, having a lot of smaller regional banks in the United States is actually really good to service a lot of customers. However, sort of talking out both sides of my mouth here, I think online banking, right, as we continue to evolve and as the Generation Z people get a little bit older, right, so such as myself, like the Gen Z generation, I really think the use case for a lot of those regional banks may not be as useful, for lack of a better term, than they were before, right? Because Gen Z and some of the younger millennials are really, really tech savvy, right? And they do the vast majority of their banking online, right? And we had this conversation, is there a marketplace for, in-person retail banking at regional banks where you sit down with your banker? Absolutely, 100%, that's undeniable. Real quick, I just want to show everybody, this is actually the Flatiron building. And I think this building is now for sale. Is that correct, everybody? This is one of the most iconic buildings in all New York City. It's one of my personal favorites. But the bad thing is it's covered in scaffolding. And it's been this way, I think, for about a year now. But from the Flatiron building, you have really, really beautiful view of the Empire State Building in Midtown. Hey, Stephanie is here. Good to see you. Nina, this is Tom. Good to see you, Nina. Thank you for joining. Julie M. says, where will people hide their money now if you can't put it in a Swiss bank account? Hilarious. Jeez. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I think any type of change is going to be uncomfortable for people. But again, in this fiat system that we live in, has anybody heard the terminology you can't taper a Ponzi? Because if you understand what a fractional reserve banking and a fractional reserve lending system is, it's essentially predicated on the issuance of new debt in perpetuity forever. So as rates start to normalize here, the vast majority of assets that a lot of these banks hold are theoretically underwater, right? Because rates have gone up so much. So if there was ever a bank run, which we've definitely found out about this past week, they're going to need bailouts. Hey, Be the Travelers here says, what's the second best city in the world behind New York? In the world, I'm not sure, but I really like Miami, Florida, in my view. All right, but anyway, guys, so let's just do a quick rundown. On Tuesday, Nike is going to be reporting earnings. So this is significant because this is the last stock in the Dow Jones Industrial Average to report. So earnings season is finally winding down. So hopefully we'll get a teeny bit of a break, but I think Nike is going to be one to pay attention to, because we can probably use that as a proxy for the overall health of the consumer. We got some consumer spending data out, and we got some consumer sentiment data out last week. Obviously, we heard from the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index dropping about 4 points. And keep in mind, the indice dropped 4 points while 85% of the survey was sent out before the Silicon Valley Bank collapsed. So people were taking the survey before they even knew about these, massive amount of bank insolvencies. So you can only imagine what the next month's consumer sentiment survey is going to look like. In addition, consumer spending came in light, so we'll see if that translates over to Nike. But in terms of geography here, I'm very interested to see sales strength in China. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that Nike's going to report a good quarter. Do you think there's going to be a lot of margin compression there? Do you think there's going to be a lot of inventory build? We've been seeing inventory build in a lot of retailers. Even, aside from retailers, we've been seeing a lot of inventory build in some of the semiconductor companies too. Hey, Alden is here. Says, yo, Wall Street's still doing it. Fan of his since Hurricane Ida. Wow, dude. Oh my God, Hurricane Ida. I remember, dude, I remember that. That was a fun stream way back in the day. Good to see you as always, Alden. Happy Sunday to you. Nina says, I think there's going to be significant inventory build. Hey, Zach Drew. Oh, wow, very cool. Zach, that probably means that probably means the Long Island Railroad is going to be ridiculously packed tonight on my way home. All the Rangers fans getting out. So this is West 20th Street. We're headed downtown. Mike MTL, good to see you. Atlas. Says, what other bot functions does the chat have? Usually I just use the night bot to drop useful links and things like that into the chat. But I think I programmed it to show you guys the weather as well. Now I am working on something to program the night bot to pull data from Zillow. So stay tuned for that. Wow, Buy the Books is Nike partnered with Tiffany for a featured shoe. Wow, I didn't know that. That's kind of cool. Well, the main Tiffany right there on 5th Avenue is being completely remodeled. And it's supposed to be amazing on the inside. It's funny because my neighbor in Miami is actually pretty high up in the company at Tiffany. And he's always traveling back and forth between Miami and New York, just kind of like how I am. He mainly works in Bal Harbor. If you guys know where Bal Harbor is in Florida, it's sort of like Miami's 5th Avenue. Very, very nice. Very, very nice place. Hey, Paul, what's up? Just people want to be out and about. Hold on, Yeah, spending in food and entertainment is very high. I mean, this whole weekend in New York was packed. Now, there was the marathon. The half marathon was today. So hopefully that stirred up some more business. Brad's brains has been mostly miserable all weekend. All Iowa teams lost in the bet. Hey, you know what? Brad, I was actually watching some of the NCAA basketball last night, and it was a crazy game. I think it was Kansas #1 against 8 seed Arkansas, and there was a big upset. That was actually pretty cool. It was awesome. The ABX Girls' New York City half marathon had 25,000 runners. Wow. It's crazy to think about because I had no idea it was going to be even going on until last night when some of the viewers in the chat were talking about it. Oh, before I forget. So this week, not only is the Fed really going to, put an overcast on all other data, but we have some very, very important existing home sales data coming out. Now, every time the National Association of Realtors releases their existing home sales data, we usually spend the entire stream doing a deep dive within that report. So on Tuesday the 21st, the National Association of Realtors is going to report existing home sales for February. Now keep in mind, as of last month, so January's numbers, let's just wait to cross here at the light. We had 12 months in a row of declining existing home sales. So a year of existing home sales in decline, which makes sense because interest rates have been going up so much. But consensus on Wall Street is for a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 4.2 million homes sold. That's right about 200,000 more than in January. So we'll see. Maybe this particular month will break the trend. But here's my question. Because on one side of the argument, oh, really quick, guys, before I forget, if you look in the distance here, this is actually the new school. This is one of the most prestigious design schools in the world. It's located right here on West 14th Street. And it has a really, really cool design, so I'll sort of take you guys past there. But, you know, I guess you could argue this in two ways. Because the bond market caught a huge bid. I'm talking about a massive bid last week. I think this has been the most significant move in yields I've ever seen in my entire career, my life. You had the 30-year fixed rate mortgage go from 7.25% down to 6.5%. You had the 1-year treasury go from 5.25% down to 4.5%. So maybe that could spur some buying activity, right? So usually the average guy or girl out there, you know, who's used to living in an environment of artificially suppressed rates, especially in 2021 when everybody was getting quotes on a 30-year fixed of, you know, 3%, 3.5%, could this spur some buying activity in the marketplace for people to say, hey, you know, that's going to save me, you know, maybe $100 or $200 a month on my mortgage payment? So that's one argument. The second argument in the other direction is exactly what we just talked about. Let me stand over here so you guys can see the design on this building. It's a really, really unique building. So once again, on the corner of West 14th Street and 5th Avenue, this is the new School of Design. Really, really cool, very unique. So here's the argument on the other hand. Banks, now that we've had multiple bank failures, not only in the United States, but now in Switzerland, with Credit Suisse, UBS just announced, breaking news on Wall Street, that UBS will be buying Credit Suisse for about $3.2 billion. You know, banks are really going to start to tighten once again. So I think if you're applying for a mortgage, you're going to need to have near perfect credit, fantastic income. And I think, you know, in the long term, that's good, right? We want very, very tight lending standards. We don't want the banks just giving out loans willy-nilly to anybody. But then again, you know, what I fear, oh, look at this flower shop. This is beautiful. My fear is that it's going to push so many people out, where the only people that will have access to credit, unfortunately, may be big players, big institutions, and the wealthy. And that could further extend the wealth gap. So I don't know, what are your thoughts there? You know, those, I try to give, you know, two opposing sides of the argument just so we can, you know, have a thought-provoking discussion. Because on one hand, yeah, I mean, rates have come down significantly, but I think banks are even going to tighten the screws even more. Hey, Brendan O'Brien, what's up? Says massive scramble for dollars and T collateral in domestic and foreign markets. Good to see you, Brendan O'Brien. Hang with Mark Mom. Hey, says good evening, Tom. Good to see you. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. Here's the side of the new School of Design, you guys can see. Hey, Ryan Beck says it's tough to say, Tom, because things like FHA will still have looser terms and government-backed, since they seem to be... Yeah, that's true. That's definitely very true. Now, when I bought my home, they really, really gave me a hard time. I think I told you guys this story already, because technically I just had left my job, right? I just left my tech sales job, and I was technically self-employed. Now, when I was self-employed, I was still making a lot of money. I was probably making a little bit more than what I made at my W-2 job. However, the bank if you're a sole proprietor, you own your own company, the bank actually prefers to lend money to a W-2 as opposed to somebody who owns their own business generally, because of income stability, right? You know, if you work for the MTA and you're making 80 grand a year, that's great, and you probably will have no problem getting a loan because that is a very, very stable job. You know, if you're in the business for yourself, even though you may be making, you know, a good amount of money, banks actually view that in a negative light, and they view that as higher credit risk. So I actually had to put about 25% down on my home when I actually didn't want to do that, by the way. I wanted to put significantly less down on my home, but they wouldn't write the loan unless I did 25%. So that got me thinking, you know, how many other people did that happen to, right? We think about the cockroach theory. If that happened to me, how many other people did that happen to? But that's actually pretty good, because we want to have a high amount of equity build in homes out there. We don't want tons of people out there that are leveraged to the teeth. That is not good. Hey, RainX12, good to see you, my friend. Joan K says, excellent point, Tom. Nina says, typically frown on self-employment, reject loans at least 1x. It's not promising versus W-2 employee. Yeah, I mean, what I was told from the bank, and what I was told is that they really want to see 2 years of self-employment history with you making $250,000 in each of those years. Now, I had just left the company, and I guess I left the company, and then it was about 6 months, I purchased the property, and they wouldn't accept the W-2 from my previous employer, obviously because I don't work there anymore. But yeah, it's interesting. Hey, Brad's Brains, his coworker bought a house last summer, and it was surprising to me how difficult it was for them. Yeah, I mean, I had a couple friends who bought property, I would say, over the last 4 years, and it is not as easy as it was, you know, leading up to 2008. But that is actually good, right? That is a good thing. The way you crash an economy is you allow people who don't have money or, you know, stable income to borrow a ton of money, right? You're setting them up for failure. I think that's the inappropriate thing to do. And leading up to 2008, in my opinion, if you could summarize 2008 financial crisis in sort of one sentence, it was, in my opinion, financial institutions setting up people for failure, right? You're setting people up for failure because they were making huge commissions on all these, you know, crazy mortgages, adjustable rates. And, you know, the bankers didn't really care about these people. They don't care if they're going to default or not. They get their commission checks. So it was definitely setting people up to fail for sure. Hey, Clarence, what's up? It's as if you have bonuses, they average out the last 3 years. I didn't know that. So I was, so my previous employer, the way it works I could just refer to tech sales, but pretty much any sales job, it's usually either a 50-50 split or a 60-40. And what I mean by the split is it's your basic salary, right? So your base compensation. This is West 10th Street, by the way. Look at all the trash piled up on the sidewalk. So you have 60% of your OTE. Right, OTE is an acronym for on-target earnings, being made up in base compensation, right? So let's say if you don't sell anything, you're still guaranteed that amount. 40% is made up in commissions. And then you have accelerators. So let's say if you do 120% of your quota, you know, your OT will be, you know, the 100% plus the accelerators, depending on which company you're at. Usually if you're in sales at like some sort of a SaaS startup, Usually the accelerators are pretty insane. But again, high risk, high reward. Because for anybody who's interested in going into tech sales or software sales or telecom sales as a career, the big test is if you're a good salesperson or not, is try to sell software at a startup, or try to sell, any type of product that doesn't have a very well-known name, right? So if you think about, let's say if you apply as an account executive at Salesforce right now, and you get the job. Well, you have brand recognition, you have the brand name. Everybody knows Salesforce. Everybody knows that name, it's a trusted name. But if you can perform really, really well at a startup and really blow it out of the water, you are the cream of the crop top 1% salesman and saleswoman, like without a doubt. Hey, Brad's Brain says there's a happy medium though, Tom. It seems to me they're being excessively hard on folks who are fully qualified. We'll see how much worse it gets this year. If I had to bet, Brad, I think it's probably going to get a little bit worse. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think lending standards are going to be tougher? I think so. I mean, just put yourself in that perspective as a bank, right? Put yourself in their shoes. Why would you be lending money to people? Hey, Atlas, good to see you. This is a very good insight. No problem. Thank you for being here. Hey, Ibrahim Azam, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. Hey, DMs, is my friend in Charlotte owns a massage therapy spa and is facing the same issues with purchasing a home. Wow, DM, that's good data. So you're saying that because she owns her own business, they're giving her a little bit of a hard time with lending her money because they probably perceive her as a higher credit risk. Yeah, I mean, that's sort of what I went through too. They'll probably make you put more down on the home. At least that's what they did with me. And look, I had a really good credit score. Now, I will say this. You guys want to know one of the biggest mistakes I made? Here, I'll tell you. Here's something I made a mistake. Now, it's going to sound it's going to sound like I'm contradicting myself, because it's really not a mistake, but it is. And I'll explain. Ever since I was young, I've been so against debt. Like totally against it. So I didn't really open a credit card, like almost ever. So my credit history was very, very new, so to speak. And that is not good if you're trying to borrow money from a bank, right? So if you want to go into business and take out a loan, unfortunately, the banks really want to see a long history of credit. They couldn't care less if you have, however amount of cash in the bank. If you want to, borrow from the bank, they want to see credit history that you are paying your bills on time. So if I had to do it over again, I probably would have opened like a little Discover card or like a stupid rinky-dink credit card when I was like 18 years old, and just put like $50 on it a month and just paid it off. I didn't do that until like, 21 years old, 22 years old. So, yeah, Joe Driver says, Tom, that hurts you. Yeah, you're right. It really, and it's kind of stupid to think about, right? Because it's sort of punishing the people who are really doing the right thing. Wow, look at this. Guys, check this out. Gorgeous view of One World Trade Center tonight. We are now in Washington Square Park. Beautiful dog at the bottom right. Who Dat Dave says, try your best to never go into debt. Yeah, of course, yeah. But I think it's important, right, if you want to own rental real estate or investment property, that you don't have to open a credit card and run up a bunch of debt. Just put $50 on it and pay it off. But you want to make sure you have significant time to show the banks that you're paying your bills on time and that you're responsible. Because even though my credit is good, it's the history, it's the duration, which I did not have. So yeah, if I had to go back in time and do it again, that's what I would do. Hey, Angel. This is Tom. What is your age? I'm 27 years old. Getting older by the day. R. Raleigh, 1965. Says I get my Amazon points off my credit card. Very nice. Good to see you. Brendan O'Brien says the 2 to 4% mortgage debt is in reality an asset. Unless you really, get hosed on the sale. That's true. That is very true. Hey, Ben Cunningham, long time no see, dude. Good to see you. God bless you. Says, yup, credit card always scared me because of the debt. Finally got a Discover card and it ended up paying insane interest on my first car. Wow. Yep, so excellent. Yeah, so that's another example. So I'm trying to read it's hard for me to read the chat tonight because my fingers are frozen, so it's taking me forever to scroll. I apologize. But yeah, so you think about that. So there's a lot of people out there who are hyper vigilant about, not going into debt, saving money, doing the right thing. But in this system, right, in the system that we live in, you kind of got to play the game, right? In theory, you can be punished for technically doing the right thing. Now, again, this doesn't mean, open up a credit card and start blowing money on stupid junk. No, just open up a credit card, put $50 on it a month when you're 18 years old and just pay it off, and that'll build your credit. All right, I'll give you guys a sweeping view of Washington Square Park. It's a very gorgeous night out, very quiet, but it is cold. Really, Steve CR says, Tom, you're the only person I know who doesn't have a car. I mean, I just have no reason to get one. At least not yet. Hey, Joe Drivers, 3 years ago I bought a short sale home, went with Chase. I had full purchase money in the account. Okay. So they even saw that you had enough cash to purchase the home outright, and you banked with Chase, and they still gave you a hard time on the loan. Wow. So again, and this is kind of strange to talk about, but again, it's obviously bad news, but it's very, very good news, right? Because this is going to strengthen. And this is another reason, right? We make this argument all the time. This is why I don't think the massive decline in real estate prices is going to be as severe as '08. Because if, we just heard a handful of stories here, and here we are outside of NYU. If we continue to walk down this street, everybody, this is the Stern building, so Stern Business School. It's one of the best business schools in the United States, NYU Stern. But, we just heard a handful of stories from people in the chat saying, hey, Tom, I ran into a similar situation. I had enough money in the bank to, in theory, purchase the property in all cash, and the bank still gave me a hard time with the loan and required me to put, more money down or whatnot. So if those people have been the individuals or entities purchasing properties, specifically, let's say in residential, over the last 6-7 years, well, I think the default risk is pretty low, right? I think where you have growing default risk is in more commercial properties, and we're actually starting to see that tick up, but we talked about that in a previous stream. So I actually think a lot of the residential market, as it relates to default risk, I still think is pretty low. Would you guys agree with that? Hey, Frank is here. What's up, Frank? This is good evening, folks. Welcome, Frank. 1965 says my credit score has been 830-ish for years. Use cards and pay them in full each month. Well, that's the way to do it. That's another thing, right? If you're going to open a credit card, you got to understand consumer debt. Everybody, consumer debt is the highest yielding debt. I think some interest rates on credit cards are like 18%, something ridiculous. Maybe even higher, actually. What would you say is the average rate on a credit card? It's probably in the high teens to low 20s, right? It's got to be, depending on, I guess, credit score or things like that. But that's insane. So if you're holding a balance every month, you're really getting fleeced. So that's a really good, another good comment there. You got to pay it off every month. All right, everybody, check this out. This is a really unique store here in the NYU sort of college town. Everybody can come here, play board games. Look at all those original boxes on the ceiling too. This is kind of unique. This is something that you really only see in these cities like New York. It's kind of cool. It looks like a lot of fun too. This is actually a really good ramen place. I've been here multiple times. Wow. 1 day rewards is 24, almost 25%. Jeez. That is a ripoff and a half, man. Mark Daly says if the average consumer could not use credit, I believe people would riot in the streets. I think you do have a good point there. Hold on, I'm just trying to cross the street, apologize. I think you do have a good point because we did get some data out last week. I'm just crossing the street so I can give you guys a view of the outdoor dining situation here. Always love walking around the NYU college town. Yeah, but I mean, to your point, a lot of people, and we got some data out last week in relation to consumer debt reaching all-time record highs. So I believe you're correct on that. Hey, Will M says that is the problem. Has the sustained consumer spending been relying on credit? What happens when that dries up? That's a good point. Now, here's the interesting thing, Will M. I've said that. I've made that argument since last year. So the resiliency, to your point, is really, I mean, it's taken me back. And it has well exceeded my expectations. Let's just say that. Well exceeded. You know, I was walking around the city last night with you guys, and almost every single restaurant was completely packed. Check this out. This is so unique. These are chessboards. Hellfire against Blue Devils. I don't know about that one, but some of the other ones look pretty cool. This is a chess store. So cool. I like that one. The red and black. This one is the Super Mario characters. Look at that. That's funny. You can buy a Super Mario chessboard. Somebody says, Tom, do you play chess? I did. I used to actually play a lot of chess back in middle school. I was in, not really a club, but like the after school activities, I would always play chess. I think chess is a very good game to learn for like critical thinking skills. It's a very good game. All right, but guys, moving right along. But this is a good conversation about credit card debt and things like that. Now, the reason why we were talking about it is because Tuesday we are going to hear from the National Association of Realtors as they report existing home sales. So it's been 12 months in a row that existing home sales has been on the decline, mainly because interest rates have moved up in just an unbelievable fashion. But now interest rates have come back down. However, that brings us to our next subject, which is going to be Wednesday. Wednesday is the next FOMC meeting. And there's about a 75% chance that the Federal Reserve is going to raise their Fed funds rate by about 25 basis points. So this is going to be on Wednesday, the FOMC meeting. Now, if that happens, if we do get a raise by a quarter point, that will mean the new Fed funds target rate will now be 4.75, so 4 3/4 to 5%. And I think that's going to continue to put upward pressure on mortgages or mortgage interest rates. And I think now would be a pretty appropriate time. Let me just give you one quick shot of the college town here before we head into SoHo. Now let's get a little bit of a survey. We do this every FOMC meeting, guys, but we'll take a little bit of a poll in the chat. Do you guys think they're going to raise by 25 basis points? Do you think that they're going to pause? Or do you guys think that Nomura, the investment bank, do you think they're correct and the Federal Reserve will actually cut by 25 basis points? I think the responses in the chat are going to be interesting. Let me know what you guys think in the chat. Hey, Ryan Beck says, Tom, I think 25 basis points to keep the image of stability, then pause next FOMC. That's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, I think I am in total agreement with Ryan Beck. I couldn't have said it better. The appearance of stability, right? If Fed Chair Jerome Powell cuts, I think it's going to be, yeah, I think you could really see limit down. Wow, everybody's saying 25, okay. Julia M says 25, then pause. Austin City Limits. Hey, Austin City Limits, good to see you. This is raised by 25. Palmetto says 25. All right, so we're all on the same page here. Julia M says no way he cuts. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Goldman Sachs, there's two. Now, Goldman Sachs came out last week, well, earlier last week. I think it was actually on a Monday. They came out and said that due to the bailouts, due to the Federal Reserve opening the discount window to back depositors, they're forecasting a pause at the next meeting, which would be Wednesday. I don't know. I think they're going to be wrong, and I think if I had to put money on it, I know Nomura is going to be wrong. I mean, that would just cause total chaos if the Federal Reserve cut by 25. Julie M says, Tom, did you hear about the Fed liquidity swap flip announcement today? I was reading a little bit about it on Twitter, but I actually tried to not look at the Twitter sphere where I get most of my news from today. I sort of had my phone away all day, but I didn't hear about it. What did they say? If you don't mind typing it in the chat. Hey, P. Escobar says, Tom, the word before the Silicon Valley bank collapse was 50 basis points, but they probably don't want to spook the market, so 25. You are 100,000% correct. You're right on the money. And that is why, I mean, this turn of events in the market has really been almost breathtaking in a way. Because when we were doing our live streams in Miami, after we got that hotter than expected inflation report, the Fed's preferred inflation gauge, the market was pricing in a higher probability of a 50 basis point hike. This was before all the banking collapse. So you're so right. So could you imagine that just 2 weeks ago, the Fed was like, hey, signal to the market that this banking crisis is so severe in the United States that the Federal Reserve is going to let inflation run wild. Oh, is that Guys, what do you think? Look at this. I think this may be a painting of Billionaires Row from the literal spot where we were doing the live stream last night. Does anybody remember that? So this looks to be Central Park Tower right here. This looks to be 157, and that huge one appears to be the Steinway building. This is actually from one of my favorite spots in Central Park. That is a really beautiful piece. That is a really, really nice piece of art. I'll let you guys scan the QR code if you want. Some people like it. If you guys are interested in checking out art, I'm a big fan. I have no problem, supporting the different artists, things like that. But that's a really nice piece. FredX says buy it. Yeah, I don't think I could afford anything down here, FredX. Although I got to show you guys, I do actually have two real pieces of art. Now, I'm using the term real for a lack of a better terminology here. All art is real, and I get it, and all artists are very talented. But I'm talking about like a piece that is from a well-known artist, and that is limited. Look at this. Now you'll notice here in SoHo a lot of different galleries. This particular gallery, one is in New York, one is in Berlin. Yeah, Two Real Freedoms is the QR code scan. Said I can't afford it. I can't afford it either. Hey, Line 6 is Tom. You only joined Twitter, what, maybe a year or so ago? Where did you get most of your news from then? Well, I have 2 Twitter accounts. Now, you guys only know about one. If you want to follow me at Walks Wall Street on Twitter, that's mainly where I interact with people. And let me tell you something. Twitter is a fantastic place for networking. Very, very smart people hang out on Twitter. Look at this Tesla. This is a really nice Tesla here. But one thing I like a lot about SoHo are these gorgeous pre-war buildings with all the fire escapes. And just check out the ceiling heights within these buildings. Now, these are the original lofts in SoHo. You could see just the detail of the original fire escapes. Very, very unique. As we continue to walk even further into SoHo, you're going to see some more interesting buildings. But before that, I mean, I only read 3 publications. I think you really only need 3 publications, which is the Wall Street Journal, Barron's, and Investors Business Daily. I think pretty much everything else is going to have a very, very hard political spin. And I'm not really interested in the politics, right? Maybe some people are, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. But I'm just really not interested in the politics. So if you want to read the New York Times, you know, if you want to read the Washington Post, it's just going to be a bunch of political nonsense. But IBD, Barron's, and the like, it's just all about financial stuff. So take a look at these buildings here. Julie M., thank you for posting the link to the story. I appreciate it. Now we're on Prince Street. If we continue to walk down Prince Street, there's a very good pizza shop. It's called Prince Street Pizza. But that's a couple blocks down. But take a look at the view of the One World Trade Center from here. Really, really nice. So it seems like we're all on par with the Fed raising by 25 basis points. And I think we'll be right. We'll see if the market throws us through a loop. But it's not just the Federal Reserve that we're going to hear from everybody. It is the Bank of England. Okay, so right after we hear the monetary announcement from Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, on Thursday, March 23rd, oh, here's another art gallery. I'll show you guys this. We are going to hear from the Bank of England as they announce their brand new monetary policy decision. There's about a 50-50 chance if they're going to raise rates or not. Now, keep in mind, they have their terminal rate set at 4%. So we'll see if they raise by a quarter point. It's either they're going to raise by a quarter point or they're going to pause. We'll see. Now, my thoughts on that is if the Fed raises by a quarter of a percentage point, 25 basis points, I think you're going to see the Bank of England follow. Because usually, yes, all central banks are independent. That is true. But global central banks usually take the lead of the Federal Reserve, which is our central bank. So we'll see. Hey, ATC says all these galleries are so nice to see. Oh my God, it's Lady O. What's up? Long time no see. Lady O is our good moderator from New Jersey. Hope you're well. Thank you for joining us on this frigid, cold Manhattan night. Lady O, when's the last time you were able to venture into the city? Check out Italy or something like that. Always good to see you. Here's some more shots of the gorgeous fire escapes here in SoHo. You know, I think we'll walk down to Canal Street and we'll make a left. Hey, Vonda Howard. What's up, Vonda? Yeah, Palmetti's is like, meanwhile, Japan has negative interest rates. That's true. Now, Japan sort of has to do that, or the economy would absolutely, totally implode, and it would be a catastrophe. But you're right. The Bank of Japan, the BOJ, is holding negative interest rates. Wow, Lady O says the last time I was in New York was in November. Oh my gosh. We got to get you back in the city. Hope all is well, though. Here's some more of the art galleries here. Flat smacks as I would use my fire escapes every day. Yeah, well, in the summer, I mean, you guys will see, right? Here's a pretty good example right across the street. This is actually on the corner of Spring Street now. Almost every apartment has their fire escape. Now, in the spring and in the summer, you'll see everybody hanging out, enjoying the weather on their fire escapes, which really, it's a really nice setting to see that. You know, and hopefully in a couple weeks here, this frigid cold will be behind us, please God. And hopefully the wind will die down too. Now you're going to see some even better buildings as we go down the canal. We'll make a left and walk up through Little Italy, but I think you guys get the picture. Now this building has a really, really nice loft style apartments in it. You could see it. I mean, those are probably, what, 15-foot ceilings? Maybe more. Look at that. It doesn't look like anybody's in them. They look vacant, but those are really, really nice. Hey, Lost Boy, good to see you. Welcome. Yeah, Lady O, I heard that too. Says I heard the Flatiron building is for sale for $60 million. I heard that as well. Hopefully, whoever buys it will preserve the building and won't make any real big changes. But maybe it'll be some sort of a hotel. I don't know. I think it'd be kind of cool to maybe make the Flatiron building a hotel. I would stay there to check it out. We'll see. Here's another good example, guys. Look at that. Huge ceilings. Now it looks like the people who own this loft here in SoHo actually have a very unique projector setup. You can see a lot of the built-ins. I think the main selling point, in my opinion, for living or purchasing an apartment in SoHo is you're going to get these really, really big, expansive, wide open floor plans, extremely tall ceiling heights, so you're going to get a lot of space. I think that's the main selling point for SoHo, these gorgeous lofts. Yeah. Someone says SoHo has some of the best architecture in the city. I agree. I'm trying to remember where this one string of buildings are. I think we have to make a left on Broome Street, which should be right here. Let me see. Once I get to the corner, I'll be able to tell in 2 seconds. Yeah, it's right here. Okay, so I'll cross and I'll show you guys. We'll cross behind this guy. This is the Broome Street Bar. Oh, that's too bad. You guys can't see it because look at all the scaffolding. I was going to show you this building. It was one of my favorites. But unfortunately, it looks like there's some massive construction there. But these lofts are really nice too. Notice the big ceilings. You can see the TV mounted on the wall. Everybody has their individual fire escape. Really, really nice. And here it is. So right on the corner of West Broadway and Broome Street, you guys will actually see a very iconic building here. This is actually Serhant. This is Ryan Serhant's real estate brokerage. This is their brand new office building. Very cool. I think I showed you guys this once before, but this is the office of Serhant. Now, I think the most recognizable listing that Ryan has currently is the triplex atop of Central Park Tower. Now, does anybody remember from last night's live stream, I pointed out all of the major buildings on Billionaires Row? Well, I pointed out Central Park Tower, and you can purchase the triplex all the way at the top for $250 million. Yes, $250 million. I believe the monthly property taxes are something crazy. With the property taxes and HOA, what is the property taxes again? I want to say $80,000. It's something nuts. Who Dat Dave's is $100 million? No, it is a $250 million. $250 million for the top triplex. But it is absolutely gorgeous if you guys want to watch the video. Really, really well produced. I think it has the highest outdoor sky deck in the world. So you could have lunch on your beautiful terrace overlooking the states of New Jersey, Connecticut, and all of New York, Westchester County. It's kind of crazy. From your apartment, you could see different states. That's how big it is. Now, here's another beautiful example of the buildings that I love so much here. Yeah, Ryan Beck says I won't go a penny over 245. I'm going to offer 240 and see what they say. Now, this is why I love New York City so much, everybody, because you have such a big contrast between living in these luxurious, brand new buildings with all glass, like 157, as well as Central Park Tower, and then you have more of the older style pre-war buildings with a lot of character, right? You have these gorgeous fire escapes snaking on the outside of the entire building. It almost feels like you're not really in New York, right? So let's say if you work in Midtown, you can kind of come down here to get a little bit of an escape. But just outside your window, you have another beautiful view of the World Trade Center. So yeah, Billy, you're right. You're right. The commission on that's probably, 8 to 10 million, maybe. Now, I think with the more expensive the building is, I think they negotiate the commission percentage significantly lower, right? Because if you think about the average commission, let's say if you're selling your house or something like that, the commission's what, probably 5%? Something like that. But if you're selling a big multi-family deal, right, like a big multi-family property, $50 to $100 million, the commission's probably only going to be a couple points. But still, it's a lot of money. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a lot of money, but I think the larger size the deal, you're not going to pay a 6% commission on a Billionaires Row $250 million, triplex. Someone says, do you think the $250 million penthouse is worth it for that amount of money? Yeah, well, I mean, there's only a select few individuals on planet Earth that could afford that, right? It's probably like the royal families in Saudi Arabia. Now, you guys got to understand something. A lot of these trophy apartments on Billionaires Row is just that, right? It's like buying a fine piece of art. It's like owning a Picasso, right? It's an original one of one, right? That is the value there. So I think depending on who you're selling to, the sale is a lot different, right? Also, wow, look at this building. This is probably a brand new development, very unique. Look at the windows. Those are probably 10-foot ceilings too. Now, if you're looking at, I mean, think about a building like 432 Park Avenue. Now, I think 432 Park set a record for the sale, right? I think it was like an $80 million sale, and the owner has actually never even been there. It sits totally vacant. The owner has never been there. And some people do that to park their money, right, as a way for diversification. I mean, think about it. If you're, a billionaire and you live overseas, if I could buy the top 3 floors of 432 Park Avenue, I know my investment is going to be safe, right? Nobody's going to break into it, nobody's going to steal anything, and it's always going to hold its value relatively. So it's a way for, foreign investors to park some of their assets in these big trophy apartments. So when you get up there in those numbers like $50, $100 million sales, chances are the vast majority of those people who purchase those properties maybe visit them once a year, maybe not even visit them at all. So, all right, everybody, we made it to Canal Street. Here we are. So Canal Street will take you across the entire island. Now, if you look directly ahead of you, this is actually the Holland Tunnel. So this will take you all the way back out to New Jersey. But as we go all the way down here, Canal Street will actually run you right into the Manhattan Bridge. That'll take you back to Brooklyn. So this is West Broadway and Canal Street. Hey, Sunshine, New York City, what's up? Good to see you. Hope you're well. Thank you so much. Brick stone wall. Well, here's the garbage guy. But there's trash everywhere down here. Canal Street is always been a little bit of, not rough around the edges. In terms of the appearance, it's a little bit rough around the edges. But I really like Canal Street. I'll go down a couple more blocks, but notice these buildings here. Notice the graffiti. Again, you'll see the fire escapes, which I love. But if you guys are enjoying the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video, click the subscribe button if you're new, share the show with your friends. We do the live stream about 7 days a week, starting at 8:30 p.m. Hey, Michael, what's up? This is Tom. What's going on from Corpus Christi, Texas? What's on the agenda? Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a busy week on Wall Street. I think the main 2 events, in my eyes, well, the main 2 events that I'm going to be paying most attention to is the National Association of Realtors Existing Home Sales Report, which is going to be out on Tuesday. We'll probably spend all day Tuesday on the live stream focusing on that report. Look at this loft right here. This is exactly what I was talking about. Huge ceilings, tons of open space. If you're into an open concept floor plan, SoHo is the place for you. You're definitely going to find it there. But remember, 12 months in a row, home sales have declined. But I think the day that everybody is going to be looking at is Wednesday, when we have the FOMC meeting. And then after that, we're going to get the Bank of England comments from them. But I guess the only breaking news today over the weekend, look at how unique this is. Look at all the graffiti here. This is a pretty cool shot with the 24-hour parking sign. Now, the big breaking news, and obviously they closed the deal before the market would open, UBS, which is a Swiss bank, buys Credit Suisse, the failing bank, for about $3.2 billion. Now, assuming you are a Credit Suisse shareholder, hopefully you're not, if you own the stock, you're going to get about 1 UBS share for every 22 Credit Suisse shares you own, right? So assuming the stock, I think Credit Suisse closed at what, $2 a share on Friday? So for every one share of Credit Suisse you own, or excuse me, for every 22 Credit Suisse shares you own, you're going to receive one UBS share. Now this building is a very, very unique building. This is the Jenga building. And I believe at the very base, the very bottom of the Jenga building is where you have the bean, sort of like Chicago, right? If anybody's been to Chicago and saw the bean there, well, we now have ours right here at the base of this building, the Jenga building. I would walk there tonight, but I gotta head back up to what's it called? Penn Station. But it is a beautiful building for sure. Check this out. You have the original Grant says you should buy a scooter. Yeah, maybe. It's just the thing in New York, it's such a pain, you know, lugging it around everywhere. Look at how big that dog is. That thing is like a bear. Now, I think as of recording this video, does anybody know what futures are doing tonight? Because the internet wasn't good when we started off the live stream, so I couldn't really check. But at 6 o'clock when they opened, I think the S&P E-minis were up fractionally, maybe like a couple points. Ryan Bex is up sharply early, coming back down. Now again, I'd like to remind everybody, you know, obviously history doesn't repeat itself exactly, but it does tend to rhyme. So I'd like to remind you guys what we were talking about just last week. So March 16th of 2008, that is when JP Morgan bought Bear Stearns for about $2 a share. This is a really nice restaurant here. Look at the outdoor dining. Maybe we'll do a quick lap around here. Now, markets were actually up on that news. I think the market rallied about 4.5%, maybe 4.25%. But then if you fast forward 1 year from the date that JP Morgan bought Bear Stearns, look at how bougie this place is. From the date JP Morgan bought Bear Stearns, if you fast forward 1 year, the market was down over 40%. So we'll see. I mean, could this be very reminiscent, right? Could we get, you know, maybe a big move up here, a pop on the open after the Credit Suisse news being taken over by UBS? Maybe. Does this market have further to fall? I think so. We'll see. We'll trade with the trend. This is a very classic New York shot here with the sneakers thrown over the wire here. That's a pretty cool shot. Look at that. Hey, Sparks Carnival, what's up? It's ironic tomorrow is the first day of spring, a day to celebrate new opportunities and rebirth. Here's hoping the equity markets follow. Sparks Carnival, good to see you. Is tomorrow really the first day of spring? For some reason, I thought it was Tuesday. But you're probably right. I'm horrible with that stuff. Thank God it's the first day of spring. I'm sick of the winter. You know, last week in New York, it felt like spring. Today, it was cold. It's cold right now. Here's another view of the beautiful buildings here in SoHo. Gorgeous fire escapes. Once again, this is Mercer Street. We'll make a left. Now, I think China is up. Obviously, HSI, if anyone wants to look that up, the Hang Seng Index, I think may be up last I checked. He was up a couple points. Look at how unique that is, guys. Check out how cool. All green lit. Hey, Chris Beeman is joining us. What's up, Chris? Chris joins us from probably a very, very warm Arizona. So this is the main drag here in SoHo. So if anybody visits or wants to visit SoHo to do shopping and things like that, this is where the majority of it is done, right here. This is the main strip, as I call it. Now, there's a lot more graffiti down here than what I remember. I don't know, maybe if it's just I never noticed it, but I feel like there's a lot more graffiti than what there used to be. Anybody notice the same thing? Seems like people are tagging all over the place here. Now, again, as you head towards Chinatown and on Canal Street, there was always a lot of graffiti. But I don't know, I feel like this is overkill. I feel like the whole thing is graffiti. Look at that. So the windows are like, they probably put TVs in the windows. Look at that. It's like a nightclub. Everything actually looks abandoned here. All the stores are very, very unique. Very expensive too. Yeah, the gar looks like a little bit of a weird scene. It kind of looks like a scene out of a movie, kind of. It's pretty unique. Crosby Street. Every time I see Crosby Street or I'm on Crosby Street, I think of the hockey player. I'm not really a big hockey guy, but the only hockey player I can name is that Sidney Crosby. I think he plays for the Pittsburgh Penguins, doesn't he? Something like that? Who knows? Now, lastly, to top off the week on Friday, we're going to get the durable goods report. So that should provide some interesting insight. Look at this. Oh, this is a very nice upscale hotel, but look at how unique it is. Now, during the summer, you could best believe that this is packed with people having dinner and drinks outside. Really, really nice. Hey, Eddie says, hey, Tom, do you consider moving to Florida? I did. I have a property down there. I purchased property in Florida already. Love Florida, love Miami. So I will be spending my time in New York and Miami, Florida. Looks like somebody's getting dropped off at the hotel right now. Looks very nice. This is what the streets of New York actually used to look like. I think I like it a lot better like this. So quiet too down here. Concept where you have the kitchen free flowing into the living room free flowing into the dining room. I don't really like everything boxed off. I think the new style now is these big open concept style spaces. I don't know, what do you guys like better? Hey, 350 mile per hour media is here, good to see you. Tommy G's is very desolate. Yeah, SoHo is usually very desolate at night, right? Because SoHo is a big fashion district, lots of retail, and all of that stuff closes 6, 7 o'clock. UniJ23 says, I like open concept. Hey, Hawaii, you like open concept as well? Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be really hard to sell. If you have a home and it's not open concept, I think it's going to be harder to sell. It's not going to be, extremely hard to sell, but, open concept is really, really in right now. Yeah, Keith's like, walls ain't bad when you have kids. So true. Now, obviously for the individual rooms, right? If you have one bedroom, maybe the big master bedroom, master bath, obviously that is closed off, but in my view, I like everything to have a nice transition from the kitchen to the living room to the dining area. That's true. Steph UH says you have to keep the kitchen clean all the time. Now, if you're buying like a really, really nice apartment, right? Let's say, and you do a lot of entertaining in the city, it's good to have a mini chef's kitchen, right? Because to Steph's point in the chat, if you have this big, beautiful, open floor plan concept and you're doing a lot of entertaining, you have dinner parties, you need somewhere to prepare the food and not have all the dirty pots and pans in the sink while your guests are over. So it's really, really nice to have a secluded chef's kitchen, right? So maybe you could have your staff or your chef come over and, do the cooking while you're still doing all the entertaining, and all of that is sort of hidden away. So you're actually starting to see that in a lot of the higher end new developments too. It's a good point. I'll give you a quick look. Yeah, Richard Vogel says a tumbleweed just went by. Here in New York, we have tumble garbage. So garbage will be blowing around all the time. Wow, look at how unique this is. This is a really unique fire escape too. It's like a miniature fire escape. Now, this is probably the perfect example of what I was talking about. You can actually see inside of the lofts. So it's pretty much just all one big open space. Hey, Jack Spencer, good to see you. Oh, that's good. The conversion, it's easy to get around. That's really, really good. I think I like the one on the left a little bit better. You guys see that? Huge, huge open concept. That is unreal. Yeah, I think if I had the money, I'd probably get one of these. They're just so unique, especially in the summer. Hang out on your fire escape. I always wondered what this is. This Orange Theory Fitness. Has anybody been here or know somebody that goes to this place? What's so special about it? What do they do? Why is it so expensive? I don't get it. Is it just like personal training, or is it something different? Anybody in here have been to the Orange Theory, or who has gone or knows somebody? Oh, it maintains your heart rate. Ah, sunshine after rain, okay. How did you like working there? Ah, Walking Minnesotis is there. Team workouts with a trainer. J9's is just another hipster gym. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people I talk to are obsessed with it. I don't know, strange. National Party Cats is Miami Beach is deadly right now. 2 homicides. Yeah, well, this is the spring break time. Now, usually, look at these beautiful trees. When it's spring break in Miami Beach, I kind of head out. I'm not a big party guy, you know that, but you know, in March, everybody descends on South Beach and it's chaos. Not a real big fan of the partying, so I, you know, duck away to New York, fly away here. Look at this. This is pretty unique, this hotel. Wow, Ryan Beck says they're under curfew right now. Well, they do that every year. The pesky spring breakers. Well, I think spring break ends in a week, so. But team, I think we're gonna leave it off there. It is cold out tonight. I tried to work through everything as best as possible, but you know, I'm just adjusting to the cold. But I think it was a fun stream. We talked about a lot of good stuff. So if you guys enjoyed the live stream tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video. Click the subscribe button if you're new. Tomorrow's gonna be a lot warmer. We have a lot to talk about tomorrow as well. Let me try to give you a shot of the down the street here. Abdullah, I appreciate it. Rose Ramos, Patricia Ivory, David S, Laura M. Everybody, make it a good week. It's going to be a very volatile week, but I'm positive we can make it through in one piece. If you want to connect with us on Twitter, you can follow @WalksWallStreet. And again, we do these live streams about 7 days a week, starting at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Now, the good news is tomorrow is the first day of spring, I think, according to the chat. So winter is officially behind us, thank you God. And that means the days are going to grow longer. So pretty soon we're going to be doing the live streams while the sun is still out, at least for a couple minutes, 30 minutes or so. All right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow. God bless. Take care and be safe.